All right, guys. Welcome back to Off the Couch with the Psych Guys. Little Birdie told me that you did your first triathlon, Tim. Is that right?
First sprint triathlon. So
wow.
It's the shortest one it could be.
All right.
But yes, it is. It was a triathlon.
So
it was good. It was good. I've never done one before.
Huh. Okay.
So the sprint triathlon, it was like a 300-meter swim.
Okay.
So it's pretty short. 10-mile bike ride.
Okay.
5K run.
Okay.
So I've never done one before, and I got roped into it a little bit thanks to.
Well, just for some of the listeners and viewers there, my wife Paula and the co-director here, she does a lot of these. So we actually try to sponsor one of these triathlons through Next Level Physio. So we kind of join forces for something like this. And so we had, I think, 4 or 5 free tickets or participants that could go.
Bibs,
something like that. And look, and there's you guys right there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, how was this? When is this? This before, after? What was this all about?
That was after.
Okay.
So.
Oh, I can see you're all sweaty.
If we took a picture before, it would be a little bit of dread on our faces, and I think there's a bunch of relief on our faces.
Yeah, I can tell.
So I got roped into that, thanks to our lovely colleagues and coworkers. But no, overall, it was great.
Right. Okay. So how did you, given it's your first one, did you do any mental prep or physical prep? I mean, just how did the whole thing go?
Yeah. So I like to exercise and stay fit regularly on my own, but I've never trained for a triathlon or anything like that. So, gosh, I think it was about like a month and a half ago.
Okay.
A month and a half ago.
Okay.
That I got roped into this.
Okay.
And I said to myself, okay, well.
Can I stop you right there? Like when you got roped into it, right? I think probably Gabby maybe roped into it. Did you have like a first automatic thought that popped up? Like when she said like, hey, we got these bibs, what are you going to do? Hey, I mean, you know how she could kind of finesse people into doing things like, so what was your first reaction like? My first
thought was, son of a bitch. Because like I knew I was going to do it.
Right.
But I was like, now I got to figure this all out. Because I know I'm not going to say no.
Right.
And in the back of my mind, it's something that I've always wanted to do and get going with. Actually, funny enough, a week prior to that, maybe like to the day, a buddy of mine said, hey, I think next year, summer 2024, we should be doing a sprint triathlon. And I said, deal.
Oh.
And so I was, in my mind, I was like, I have a year to figure out how to buy a bike, figure out how to ride it, figure out how to swim.
Right.
And then 1 week later, Gabby wrote me into it, yada, yada. I was like, oh, okay, I'll do it. Honestly, it was good that she did. Beautiful. Because it was really like ripping off a Band-Aid.
Nice.
And getting going with it.
Was it physically demanding for you? I mean, I know your exercise, you do other things, so I'm wondering, is it like a shift of how you think about it? Because there's 3 different things. How did that work for you?
So I watched a lot of YouTube videos.
Okay.
Spoke to as many people as I could who have done these things before to kind of give me like tips and tricks and that sort of stuff. So getting ready for it, well, I can swim.
Okay.
But not like like my technique and my form, how do you do this and that. I didn't know any of that, so I had to figure that out. So I was in a pool, I don't know, 3 times a week for the past 2 months or so.
Nice.
Kind of like figuring out form and that sort of stuff. I had to go buy a road bike.
Right.
Road bikes are
something.
And I was debating whether I get like kind of like a regular little bike or an actual road bike. And and I knew that I was going to get probably pretty addicted to this. So I went for a road bike. So I got that, figured out all about that. Got everything together. So there was a lot of like mental prep on just sort of like knowing what to do, how these things work, like transitioning from a swim.
Well, that's actually was one of my questions, because transitions are a big thing. And I remember Paula was saying something about like you could lose time transitioning, and that's like a big thing.
Yeah. So with me, Jess, and Steve, it was our first one.
Right.
So we didn't really know what we were doing, but from speaking to like these people and those people, we had like a little bit of an idea, but I guess I'll say that it was a learning process. because it's funny when you get your times, it tells you how exactly long the swim was, and the transition, and the bike, and the transition, and the run.
Oh, wow.
So you get all of those little times, and I realized that my transitions were like really slow, and maybe I could have done a better job drying off after the swim. So it was a really big learning experience. But like my main takeaway after the whole thing was like, oh, like anyone could do this. Okay, not anyone could do this,
Understood.
but it's doable. If you figure out how to swim, you get on a bike and
Sure.
and you run and you put them together. It's doable.
So it sounds like it's something new. You had to do a lot of almost like
homework.
Yeah, homework, like collection of information of how the whole thing goes.
Yeah.
Right. And then you would also have to, I mean, physically prepare. It sounds like, right?
Yep.
And then just from a clinical standpoint, so what did you use? Like, what kind of internal dialogue did you have in order to get yourself, going for something like this?
Well, I might have been cursing Gabby. No, I'm kidding.
Nice. Why not?
So what motivated me? Well, so really it was, because it was such a short little time period where I have to go from not knowing anything to being able to do this. That was a really big fire lit on my behind.
Sure.
And so there was a lot of pressure to just be able to do it.
Right.
So I'm not going to say that it was, how can I put this one into words? It was good pressure that I put on myself. I was like, I got to figure this out. I can't make a fool out of myself when I'm doing this. I need to know what I'm doing. So that kind of like extra stress and extra pressure was good because really it's just motivating. It just kind of kept me going. And if I'm being honest, like, was I anxious and stressed and like a little, don't want to say overwhelmed, but was I anxious and stressed about it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
But that anxiety and stress like really got my butt in gear, like to order the swimsuit, get the goggles, get in the pool, figure this out, push myself out of my comfort zone. Right. So it was all that anxiety really that I think was like pushed me
right
to be able to get it figured out. And then come race day, it all went pretty well.
Cool.
So in a weird way, I kind of like thank that anxiety.
I was about to say, it sounds like you were trying to kind of squeeze anything and everything you can out of what most people consider uncomfortable emotions, right? Because even the embarrassment piece, right? Like you wanted to do at least, just to be able to finish the thing, right? A lot of people want to hide away from it or move away from it or use it as a reason not to do it. But it sounds like you used a different strategy.
Yeah, because I mean, gosh, it would have been so much easier to just say no, right? And not do it.
Right.
But then I also knew that if I said no and I didn't do it, and like I saw I saw that picture without me, I would have regretted it so much.
I'm sure.
So yeah, like the anxiety and the stress, it's there, and yeah, like exactly like you said, if I listened to it, I would have just avoided it, then I would have missed out on an actual awesome experience where I ripped the Band-Aid off.
Right.
I got it done. I figured it out, and now going forward, like I want to do these things again.
Beautiful.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I mean, once you know even the logistics or the behaviors of what you need to do, then it makes it at least a little easier. Then you just have to have like grit and consistency and just desire, really.
I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of like a big exposure.
For sure.
I mean,
for sure.
It was something that I was anxious and stressed about, and I said, well, I'm doing it anyways.
Right.
Just kind of dove right in, and you dive right in and you figure it out, and then at the end of it, you look back and you say, oh, that wasn't so bad.
How do you, that's a really good point. So you go there's this, you're teetering on this point of somebody's asking you to do something, right? And then you could use anxiety, embarrassment, shame, whatever the case may be, on one side, and then you have stress and anxiety, and then on this side you have desire, interest. How do you like balance that? Like, how do you make that decision? Because I could totally see that this situation presents to everybody, to you, to me, to some of our listeners. It's a frequent thing, I guess. Is there something that you were doing in order to to squeeze info out of this and to capitalize on these feelings to actually do it? Because I know now that you did it, it says like, well, of course I did it. I mean, this was amazing. But in the moment, I'm wondering if there's tricks of the trade that you use to get yourself going. Because it's easy to say now, I would, like even for me to hear like, oh yeah, of course I was swimming 3 days away and I did this and I did that. But that's, that's still a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
I guess I would put it this way. And I heard this from someone else, and I really liked it when I heard it and kind of kept it. So when I think about anxiety or something that I'm anxious about, somebody asked me this, once. They said, "Would you rather run from it or run through it?" And it's a really interesting question to think about, right? Like if you're anxious about something, would you rather run from it or run through it? And if you really think about it, well, and if you have to answer that question, and you were to actually say those words to yourself in your mind, that I'm choosing to run from this rather than through it.
Right.
It kind of makes you think.
I could see that, and I really like the way you threw in, the idea of choice, right? Like then you're really positioning yourself that you're taking responsibility to either running away or running through it, and that kind of adds a little bit of like, well, if I'm going to use me, hopefully I can run through and get to the place I want to be.
And exactly, and with really so many anxieties, right? And listen, we're talking to people not all day long, but many people talking about like doing exposure exercises and overcoming fears and that sort of thing. Really, you really have to run through it.
Right.
And running through anxiety, coming out on the other side is like the absolute best way to treat it. Take that with a grain of salt, but you know what I mean?
I do.
And so, yeah, I'm in one way, shape, or form talking about that often with other people. And then if I ask myself that question for me, I'm not going to actually choose to run from.
Right.
So yeah, thinking about that, thinking about that question and keeping that question in mind for, I don't know, loads of things that I'm anxious about.
For sure.
Kind of gives me the little bit of the fire under my butt where I kind of pull the trigger and I'm locked in, and then I'm locked in and I say, okay, I got to do this.
That's great. I love it. I mean, I like that when we can distill some of this, like literally to exactly what you do, what we do, positioning questions, so that we're not just talking in metaphors. Oh, you did this and this, but like we really get to the nitty gritty. Position a question where you empower yourself to make a choice. Are you really moving away or running away from this sort of stress or anxiety, or you're trying to get through it, almost like getting through a fog, right? Like it may feel this way, but once you know there's something on the other side, or a cloud, whatever analogy works, right? You could push through it. It's going to maybe be uncomfortable. Maybe you're not going to be sure exactly what needs to happen, kind of like what you were saying about, like, well, I need to get a bike and this and that. That's all part of that fog. You're not really clear. It's not clear. But once you push through, you come to the other side, then you have a beautiful picture to remember.
Yeah, right? Yeah, and so now that I'm actually thinking about it, it's kind of layered here, right? I was kind of anxious and stressed about something. So naturally we would want to avoid it, because that's what we do with anxieties. We want to avoid them, right? So I asked myself the question, would you rather run from or run through? And I was like, I'll run through. Pull the trigger, got to figure it out. So it's a learning process, which is uncomfortable in and of itself. We don't like to learn. It's uncomfortable. And then, so that was hard part number one. And then hard part number two was the race, right? Where you're swimming and biking and running a lot, right? And so in a way, I kind of had a similar mentality while you're actually like doing the work, which stinks, right? But
For sure.
Being able to stay focused and stay grounded and stay paced and work hard and push. And yeah, I mean, you're really basically pushing yourself for over an hour.
Do you feel like mindfulness plays a role in when you're doing this? Or like, what do you, like actually when we're all doing difficult things, be it physical or otherwise? Yeah, because some people like to avoid the moment. Maybe they could listen to something to get them through it. Other people do the opposite. They lean into it. They're mindful about the swim or the stroke or the running or how the pavement hits on their on their heel, or maybe the biking itself. Right? So do you, like, where are you with some of those ideas?
So here's my guess.
Sure.
I think that the more advanced folks become in these events like triathlons or marathons or swimming, the more mindful they become, because so much goes into it that I've learned, especially with swimming. like how your stroke is, and trust me, I'm not an expert by any means, but you have to be really mindful of like of your hand positioning and your breath and how many strokes and how many kicks and all of that sort of stuff, right? As you're biking, you need to be aware of your form and your breathing and your pedal stroke to be as efficient as possible, and even running, you have to be very mindful of your pace and where your foot is landing and all of those sorts of things. Right. And as people progress in these sports, I think that they become more and more and more mindful, which is interesting because a lot of the times I think we might become a little mindless when we're in a lot of pain and stress.
That's what I was thinking. People would listen to like a lot of like music or something to distract their mind from the painful or not, but like stressful, physically demanding activity. They might want to, have their mind somewhere else.
So it's interesting. I think that you have to be kind of both like here, and your mind's probably also somewhere else too.
Oh, wow. Okay. Like divided attention, like a little bit here, a little bit there.
You have to be mindful of a lot of things. You have to be mindful of, like the cars that are passing you on the road and your pedal stroke and people around you. And, oh my gosh, I'm in so much pain. And now I want to think about something else. And,
right.
And so many different things. But it for sure is mental.
No, I would imagine. I would imagine.
And like during particularly hard parts, you really gotta like kind of like dig deep when there's a big hill that you're running up, or a big hill that you're cycling up, or something like that. Mindfulness does play a huge role in it, and I think a little bit different for everyone. And like I said, I think as people progress in the sport, and I'm a noob here, they get more and more mindful.
Well, I could see that.
That'd be my guess.
I could see that because once you get the form down, everything is running on all cylinders. Then I could see how there might be even. I mean, I know some of the runners talk about like this euphoria that kind of starts hitting them at some point. I could totally see once the form is right, once the transition, the shifting of things, then I could see how you could be a lot more present in activity. It's almost like driving in a way, right? Like we could be enjoying the ride once you know the logistics of it.
Yeah. Once you get like the pace and the form and all that sort of stuff down, a lot of people, they kind of can just go on autopilot.
Right.
And I think that happens a lot for like half marathons and marathons and that sort of thing.
Well, we should definitely have Jessica next time to talk about swimming, or Paula about like how to do a 60K in 8 hours.
Yeah, we should. Because I'll tell you what, those are great people to do it with too.
Oh yeah, no, fantastic. So blessed to have them kind of a part of the practice. Any last words? Anything that's coming to mind? If somebody's interested or getting kind of, triathlon, that sounds like for somebody who's like super elite, that's not for me. But I know that there were kids that were doing it, and there was people over 60, 65 that were doing it. So it's not just for somebody, kind of our age in the 30s, 40s, whatever. It's across the lifespan. I'm wondering, any words of wisdom?
Yeah, well, I mean, from my personal experience, find the shortest triathlon you can find and sign up for it. And almost like rip the Band-Aid off, and then you're in.
Right.
And then you kind of have to figure it out.
I love this idea. Get the smallest thing just to kind of get the exposure going, because I think a lot of people, yes, there's a mental component, yes, there's a physical component, but I also think this other big piece about just getting going is what gets in the way of a lot of people, not even so much about the other two.
Find the shortest one you can find and set one goal, which is to finish it.
Beautiful. I love it.
That's it.
It's clear, it's short and to the point.
And it's hard, but you push through, you figure it out, you get all the pieces together, and then by the end of it, you look back and you're really happy that you did it.
Nice.
And you might be a little addicted to the sport now.
Beautiful. All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care.